Okay, for the record, this is the Fairfield Economic Development Commission meeting of Thursday, February 3rd, 2022. We're meeting via Zoom. We have on the line our chairman, Kevin Lesko. We also have the vice chair, Steve Rosado, and commission members, Matt Rappaport, Ken Hockhauser, and Justin Beck. We also have Beverly Ballas joining us from the Fairfield Chamber of Commerce, and Don Peterson, our commission emeritus member. So with that, we're called a meeting to order at 8:33 a.m. Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development. I'll turn things over to you, Kevin, for your welcome remarks.
Mark, thank you so much, and welcome to each of you. I'll just start by saying it was an excellent get-together at Fairfield University last week, and I want to again thank Mark for spearheading that, and Fairfield University for hosting us, and then each of you for taking the time to get together as such. What I'll ask is if we can start with an approval of the minutes. Now, Mark, are we doing the approval of the? There really weren't any minutes per se from the 22nd, correct? We were really talking about the 6th. Is that correct?
Yeah, I put together, since we had to have a meeting, I guess officially it's a meeting. So I did put together minutes. It was not actually a verbatim transcript of any sort, but there are minutes there for the commission to adopt.
Well, so it's funny to say this then. Why don't we start with the approval of the minutes of January 6th, if we could, and if I could have someone say that it's read and accepted. A second on that?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so let's go to January 22nd then. Those minutes, any adjustments needed on that, or can we accept it as read?
Accept it as read. Second.
Okay, excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, excellent. So that's some housekeeping out of the way. I'll turn it back to Mark if you'd like to continue, Mark, with our agenda.
Yeah, I'll just note for the record, we also have commission members Colin Colburn and Justin Beck joining us as well. So I know, Kevin, you just touched on it, but I did put on the agenda if there was any further discussion or takeaways from the retreat, anything that we wanted to cover in terms of questions or follow-up. I wanted to at least give an opportunity for board members to state their piece, I guess. So
fair enough. Anyone?
I'll comment that I know we had the discussion about executives that lived in the area and potentially doing outreach to them. I did a little bit of digging into the platform that I have access to. Unfortunately, it doesn't get down to the county level like I thought. So what happens is when I look for Fairfield County, it only pulls executives that have businesses that are headquartered in Fairfield County. So there's an overlap issue, right? Like where you have many of those businesses, yes, the people do live in Fairfield County, but I think there are a lot of executives that might live here whose companies are not headquartered in Fairfield County, right? So I'm trying to figure out what the right way of pulling that kind of data is. But what I can do, and this is kind of opening like a massive amount of data about executives, is really getting down to New York City. So that data seems to be a little bit more precise of, okay, we know that these people have some kind of office location, like they are in an office that is in New York City. For whatever reason, the data is much better there. So I could pull it like that, and then we would kind of have to determine, all right, are these people that are living somewhat close to Fairfield, or are they in New Jersey, or in areas that are really not close? So if that is something of interest, I can try and do my best to get us basically a report that says, hey, here's all these C-suite executives that live in the general metropolitan area.
I think it would be of interest. We've done some marketing outreach to businesses headquartered in New York previously, looking at the businesses that were kind of small to mid-sized companies, 5 to 50 employees. We're drilling down further to firms that we consider to be in knowledge-based industries. So not all businesses, but a specific subset of them. We didn't gain a whole lot of traction through that marketing outreach, but we can always, I mean, it's certainly building awareness about other opportunities. So it wouldn't be, I think it would be interesting to try that again and see how far we get with it. It was actually good data and feedback from even though we didn't land any companies willing to relocate here or get any qualified leads out of it. It was still, we got some feedback from folks, and that was helpful.
Cool. I'll see what I can do.
And that was something I know, Ken, you had expressed interest in. So what I'll do is get you a copy of our pitch deck, and maybe we can, the three of us can circle back and have a conversation about that.
Okay, I like that.
Another question. This didn't come up during the retreat, but there are some shared space offices in town, but not a whole lot. And I don't think we have a WeWork branded space, which just talking to friends of mine who live all over the country, really, they're relying more and more on WeWork just for hosting meetings, and WeWork sells memberships that they're finding really attractive. I haven't been to any of the shared workspaces, but I know a lot of my neighbors work from home and would probably appreciate having somewhere to go to get away from noise and have access to more commercial style printing. But I think it would have to be with where we live, because people do have home offices in many cases. It would have to be pretty close to home and convenient to justify leaving the house. So I don't know if there's been any talk about that.
Doesn't Sacred Heart have that incubator?
Yeah, well, it's interesting you mentioned that, Matt. I just got a inquiry from Advanced CT, Connecticut's marketing arm, yesterday, inquiring about co-working spaces in Fairfield. And the only one that we really have is SHU's iHub, which is on the West Campus at GE, which is a co-working space. So you can do that there. It's not, in my estimation, it's not the most convenient, but which is part of the reason why GE wasn't so happy with that location. But there is perhaps some synergy if you were doing some work and potentially wanted to tap into some of the folks on campus. There's also one on the Westport Fairfield line, Be at Work, which is also a very small co-working space. But the closest, ones that are, in that category of WeWork, there's Serendipity Labs that has facilities in Westport. That's the closest. We've worked with a number of folks that have looked at it, kind of bootstrapping from the ground up, building their own type of space, but it just wasn't feasible. I think the likelihood is, and we've actually had conversations with some of these folks that are doing TOD mixed use development around transit stations. Some of the more progressive or innovative residential developers are actually incorporating co-working spaces into their facilities, both as an amenity to the resident base there, but also to the broader community, and they sell memberships for that. So we've actually talked to the developer, prospective developer at Fairfield Metro, and another one as well, who expressed concern about whether or not there's sufficient retail demand to justify ground floor retail or ground floor commercial space in these mixed use buildings. And we said, co-working is something we see demand for. We just haven't been able to find the right operator or find the right location for them. So it is something we've talked about for sure. And I'm hopeful that we'll be actually, be able to get something here in the near future.
Mark, do you recall, I think it was a collaborative between Fairfield University and E-Bands, I think it was the incubator over. Now, that's not in existence anymore, is it? Is it not? And
yeah, so there was a difference of opinion. So it was a business accelerator. It never fully realized its vision. I think both Cleveland Properties and the town felt that something like that, like a co-working space, belonged downtown. And the university ultimately decided they thought it would be best if it was on campus. And I suppose it depends what your objective is. If your objective is to provide a learning opportunity for your student population, that it certainly does belong on campus. If you're thinking that it's where you're actually trying to provide that opportunity for the broader business community and actually have students engaged with folks that are starting businesses, then I think no question it belongs off campus, which is, I think, part of the issue with SHU's iHub too. As I see it, I think that because we don't have much space, to Matt's point, there may be some demand for it, but again, it's pretty isolated up there. And I do think that if your business model relies upon tapping into that labor pool potentially from the student population or creating some synergies with the university, then it makes absolute sense. But in the broader context, I think it's somewhat limited. So that was where we had a philosophical difference. They pulled it back on the Fairfield, I think it's part of the Dolan School. I do have a meeting scheduled, a follow-up meeting with Dean Lee for the 17th of February when I wanted to talk to him further about some of his ideas, but that'll be one of the topics as well.
How many square feet are you talking about?
For a co-working space? Oh, they could be, our models here were relatively small because we don't find large blocks of space in town. It's rare that you get 10,000 square feet available. Anything beyond that is pretty good size and generally not found locally. So, but they can operate in different formats, different models. What I will say that based on, we worked with a couple folks who are trying to create it from the ground up, and I just don't think it's pretty capital intensive at the outset, and it just didn't. I think ultimately they decided that there wasn't enough margin there to make it profitable. So I think it makes more sense if it had some economy of scale. You're part of a larger network, like a WeWork. But I think we're too small a market for a WeWork. So these smaller regional things like Serendipity or something like that might be an attractive option.
I'm sending WeWork an email right now to see if they're interested.
Cool.
Let you know if I hear anything.
All right, cool.
Good. Any other commentary on the meeting at Fairfield University?
And Justin, we're working on the event idea, but we think probably in conversation with Parks and Rec and the first Selectwoman's office, our first inclination is to try to build upon an existing one and make it bigger and better, and then maybe and then create something beyond that. But it might be again, that might be an area where the university could help us in looking at feasibility and market analysis, a feasibility study, to do a little bit of the, number crunching to give some people some sense that it actually would have legs. So, I'll raise that too, see if we can get some help from Fairfield University in that regard.
Okay, thanks.
Was there any specific, action items that were tasked with from the follow-up? I know there was a lot discussed and you were sort of organizing it and putting it together. I guess want to see what we could do as next steps.
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that I took away. One is all of you indicated to one degree or another, specific areas of interest. So I'm going to tap into that. I think we want to revisit our, especially as we come out of the pandemic, our digital marketing campaign, to do more aggressive outreach to business prospects and do a little bit more in that regard. So Ken and Colin both had indicated some interest in that. The event that Justin had mentioned, We're certainly working on trying to build more community-based events. That seemed to resonate particularly well with the First Selectwoman's office. And then I know that, Rob's not here, but he really wanted to, I think, have some input or influence on the Parks and Rec master plan. And as I mentioned, now's a good time to start talking about, it's been talked about before, but whether or not we should look at facilities like a restaurant down at the beach, whether it's at Jennings, at the Marina, or someplace else, or how we can make better use of those facilities during the off season, as has been mentioned. So I'll try to connect him with those folks too. But a lot of great ideas. I think, again, we've got some, the timing is good because one of the things that obviously impacts what we do is our land use regulations. And we're going through this, hopefully completing our update to our plan of conservation development and do a zoning regulation rewrite. And so, that's certainly top of mind for me. And the fact that, we do have the outdoor dining regs is kind of our first foray into that, which has been referred by planning and zoning, has referred that to a public hearing. I don't have a date yet, but it looks like, it'll either be late February, the second meeting in February, or early March, when we'll have a hearing for that. So I'll keep you posted on that as well.
Excellent. Very good. Do you have an update for COVID response and reopening plan, or?
Yeah, not really. I think we're trying to push it out of mind at this point. Get back to normal. I mean, we're not quite there yet, but things seem to be trending in the right direction. I mean, we are working with the chamber and others to reprise our Love Local bingo contest, which is all about supporting our small business base. So now February 7th through March 4th or 5th, I think, you can play bingo. You can basically, it involves shopping or patronizing or eating out at local restaurants and stores. And if you do, then you can collect your receipts and play the bingo game and enter in for a prize. So it's just another way to support our small business community where we can. We have donated prizes from the businesses. I think have 40 or 45 businesses participating again this year. So that's a good way to support Fairfield businesses, but also have a little fun while doing it. So that's out there. I think before we started the meeting, folks were asking for a little bit of update on Metro Center, and we did have a meeting yesterday with the state of Connecticut. We're working through some of the issues. We still have to assign the development rights to the incoming development team. They are under contract in their due diligence period, but they put up their deposit money. They're working on a couple outstanding issues, one of which involves the Office of State Traffic Administration. So we're seeking a conditional approval of the former or the most recently approved master plan for the site. And we think that will be approved shortly. Now, we did get FEMA to sign off on the conditional letter of map revision based on the revised elevations of the site, which was necessary in order for them to pull a building permit for the first building. And in that regard, their design team met with the building official and fire marshal yesterday to do a pre-application plan review, which is something that I recommended. And the only other really outstanding issue is the East Trunk Sewer and Water Pollution Control Authority. They do have an approval for the master plan that they had presented to planning and zoning, got approval for. Their sewer permit expires sometime, the fall of 2022 this year. They can ask for an extension. One of the, and I don't think it'll be an issue with regard to their first building. So what they have indicated they'd like to do is build the first building in accordance with the approved plan, but then come back and seek revisions to the master plan to better utilize the remainder of the site. So it doesn't really impact the buildings along Ash Creek or residential, but the interior of the site, they want to move buildings around, change the square footage, increase the square footage, so there'll be more developable property there. And importantly, from our standpoint, they're doing more structured parking, which makes sense given the cost of land, and to actually maximize development on the site. They're going to basically not have large surface parking lots, which was part of the approved master plan for the site, believe it or not, and do more structured parking, and then have everything on a podium, including a kind of a central courtyard area, so there'll be more green space as a result of it as well. So we actually like the revisions, what we've seen. They're also moving the hotel from the interior part of the site to part of the concourse building, which it's now the concourse building is that piece that's connected to the train station. So the hotel would be there, which kind of makes sense because there's limited parking on that. I mean, ironic because you're in the Fairfield Metro Center parking lot, so there's actually 1,400 spaces, but those are commuter parking spaces as opposed to specifically reserved for the developer. But a hotel, you can obviously get away with more valet parking than you would for an office tenant user. So they're proposing to make a couple changes, well, more than a couple, but make changes to the master plan, but do so after they get a shovel in the ground for the first building, which is something again we've recommended, because nothing's worse than keep coming back asking for more revisions to your master plan. You haven't done anything with the 5 previous iterations of it. So that's where we are on Metro Center. I don't know if folks have questions, but we're.
Is there any? We can have Bridgeport closing the Holiday Inn. I think that happened this week.
Yep.
Hotels. Does that like add any fuel to the fire of like, hey, let's get this moving? There's an opportunity, or?
I think they were hesitant at first, but I think they've come around to the idea. They were questioning, whether or not, why the town felt so strongly about incorporating a hotel facility as part of the master plan. So they pushed a little bit on that in our earlier conversations, but I think they've come around a bit on that, and now they seem fully vested in that. So I do think it does add a little bit to that. I don't think it's really, from their perspective, it's tough right now, given the last couple of years. Hotels have taken a beating. There's not a whole lot of new hotels in development. Financing for that's a little sketchy. So it's a little bit of it's not just a little bit, it's a risk for them, but they also need to demonstrate that they have a commercial component for this. It's not all residential. So I think hotels are a big piece of that for them. So I think it is helpful that the Holiday Inn, I mean, I guess you could view it either way, but I see it as an opportunity.
Will there be event space, or do we know how much event space they might have?
I don't.
No.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think we'll see that when they come back with a revised master plan.
Okay, excellent.
I was, Steve, I had the same question regarding the Holiday Inn, and we're already starting to get phone calls at the chamber from parents for graduation weekends at universities. And I'm like, oh my gosh, now we're bookend, so to speak, because with Holiday Inn shutting down and changing, and then the Westport Inn not being available. And as we try to promote our town and talk about it and want visitors here, I don't know, it kind of puts us in an odd situation with regard to providing hotel space. So I was wondering if the Metro developer could maybe increase the size of the hotel, but as you're saying, maybe that's a discussion after. But Mark, do you know what is going on with the Westport Inn? I mean, it was such really a great spot for us along the corridor here.
I don't. I've kind of lost track of that. I mean, a lot of these are, they're looked at as opportunities for conversion for residential. And I know that site's been looked at from that regard in the past, so I'm not sure if that's what's under consideration there.
Yeah.
We've had some, one of the things, we've had recently a code review meeting for the medical office building on Reef Road. It's a small office building, a little aged, not the best space in terms of quality, but they're going to make a proposal. It's under contract to convert that to 9 residential units. So essentially taking office and converting it to residential. And we also had recently a proposal for your old space on Post Row where the chamber used to be. They're proposing to create 3 apartments upstairs in the 2nd floor above Quattro Pazzi and Aurora's. So converting that office space to 3 apartments with a small addition. So that trend is alive and well. We've seen that elsewhere, and it's, now we're seeing more of it here in town. We don't have a lot of office space to speak of. So, but that the building on Reef Road is not, it's kind of a lower quality space. So I think, something had to be done. I'm surprised it's not wrapped into the adjoining space, which the Norwalk Hospital still has. So
Interesting.
the only other things on, I will mention too that, as I said, we oversee the Community Development Block Grant Program. We're beginning our planning process for program year 48, which begins October 1 of this year. And so we'll have our initial public hearing where we solicit input from the general public and from some of our partners, partnering organizations on March 3rd at 6 o'clock. I'll send out a note in case any of you are interested in attending. It'll be a Zoom meeting, but we do this every year where we have a couple public hearings to put together our plan. We receive about $500,000 to $600,000 each year from the federal government. We do use a small portion of it to support our micro enterprise assistance program. And we did just recently approve, Don was on the committee, and we approved a $5,000 grant to a business here in town that actually was formerly based in their basement in Black Rock. So they've taken a 3-year lease on Tunxus Hill. And so we provided some money to offset costs for equipment for that business. So I think that's it for my report. The only other, I think, again, we touched on earlier, planning and zoning did have a public hearing, the second meeting in January, I think the 25th or so, and they considered a moratorium on cannabis establishments. They did conclude their public hearing, so there's really not much opportunity for us to provide input at this point, but they're proposing a 1-year moratorium, which seems to be the consensus among a lot of communities, kind of wait and see approach to see how things shake out with the new state law. So they're proposing a 1-year moratorium, and they'll probably vote on it this next meeting in February. They also considered similarly opting out of the state regulations as it relates to accessory dwelling units and parking regulations. that deal with residential developments. And the reason in the case of ADUs, a lot of our accessory dwelling unit language mirrors that of the states or is more advanced than what the state's requiring. But the state requires it to be universally applied across all residential zones, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did not want to do that. They did not want to apply that to the Beach District in particular, given the fact that it's a pretty sensitive area alongside the water, and they didn't want to intensify use in a high velocity flood impacted zone. So for that reason, primarily, they wanted to opt out. And with parking, the same thing. I think they just felt, for the most part, their parking regs are consistent, but not, again, universally so. And they just wanted to preserve local option there as it relates to parking for residential developments. So I expect them to vote at the next meeting in favor of all three of those things, but I'll certainly keep you posted.
Excellent. Okay. We wanted to give Beverly an opportunity to give us an update on different events.
I know she has the Economic Outlook breakfast coming up, so
Yes.
go ahead, Bev.
Exactly. And I'm sitting here with the new commissioners. I'm not sure if I have all of your emails in our database, so I did want to share that.
I'll send it over to you, Bev.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. The chamber each year starts off the new year with an Economic Outlook breakfast. It is hosted by People's United Bank. The keynote speaker is John Trainer, if any of you know him. He is People's economist, wealth advisor. He's on TV. He speaks around the world. A fabulous human being, very down to earth, and makes a wonderful presentation about trends, changes, shifts, what we can maybe anticipate going forward throughout the year. He's incredibly knowledgeable. And along with John Trainer being keynote, our first select woman, Brenda Kupchak, will be there. She drills down a little bit more to the state level and certainly specifically about the town of Fairfield. I know at the retreat, there were some questions that were raised with regard to statistics that we have here and how does that relate to the rest of the state. John, again, does a fabulous job covering everything, again, throughout the nation, but in the state as well. So I would encourage you to attend. It will be held at the Patterson Club. 7:30 breakfast opens, networking up until 8 a.m. And the presentation is from 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. Mark will send out the flyer. You can register on the Chamber's website. The breakfast is $50. Both universities will have a nice presence there. They've each bought 2 tables. So it's always nice to have the universities in the meeting. They're always very interested in this information as well. So if you can, and we hold it in the morning so then you can get onto your work day after 9 o'clock, we would love to see you there. So that's what I have right now so far.
Excellent. Bev, do you have any projecting out into the summertime or in the spring? Or are there some things that you might just put on our radar?
At this point, we're kind of going month by month. I'm still waiting on Fairfield University to give me a green light to resume our Health and Fitness Expo in March. We've held that for the last couple of years. I mean, we held that except for the last couple of years. And this is a big community event. It's free to the public. We usually have about 80 or 90 vendors in the rec center, and it's a fabulous, fabulous event. So I'm just waiting on that one. So that's what we would be looking towards in the middle of March when the students are away for spring break. But I don't have my green light yet on that one.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anyone have any questions for Beverly? All right. And in other business, anyone have anything else to bring up, or Mark have anything else to bring up?
I'll just mention that we did update our survey of available commercial space in town. You can find the latest information on our website at choosefairfieldct.com, and there's a real estate finder there. In terms of trends, it's moving in the right direction. You know, this time last year, we had vacancy rates upwards of 10%, and retail were close to 20%, which was quite high for us. Office space was closing in on 16%. We're heading in the right direction. So retail, we're still seeing retail vacancy around 15–16%, but office is down around 10%. So that's, and we don't have any real large blocks of office space available. They're all pretty small. But there's been, you know, pickup in activity as of late. And Bev, you know, I know she's been at a number of ribbon cuttings and business openings. So we do have, particularly on the retail side, and a lot of new businesses coming into town. So again, it's moving in the right direction. It's a little higher than what we've historically seen, especially on the retail side, but positively, we do have a lease and now signed for the Victoria's Secret space. So it should be moving in there. That was an internal relocation. So a retail business that's moving from elsewhere in town to the Victoria's Secret space. That's great. We had to get them out of their existing lease, which took a little bit of time, but we now have a good tenant for their other space, the space that they're leaving, which made everything kind of fall in place. So, and we've got some news, some larger space, block space over in the Fairfield Metro Center Commerce Drive area that are in play, and we've got some great potential tenants. So I'll be meeting on site next week with one that just signed a letter of intent. We don't have they're still in their due diligence period, so it's a little premature to comment further, but it'd be a great use of the space given its location, and take out another 20,000 square feet altogether. So it's again, things are trending positively.
Good. Sounds like a bunch of basic. Great.
Mark, two local questions.
Yeah.
In Greenfield Hill. One, the animal hospital, any update there? And two, Greenfield Hill Market, Testo's left a couple months ago. I tried finding that on the Fairfield website and didn't see it as available. Is anything going on there? Is it just, does the owner keep it private or something?
I have to reach back out to the owner. I didn't have a lot of details to fill in the gaps. He had some leads I passed along to him, but I don't think there's anything imminent as it relates to the space. He had a specific vision for what he wanted to do, and what his prospective operator would do. But as far as I know, it's still available. It is not reflected on our list because I don't have all the information I typically have associated with it. But if somebody were to call, I would certainly send them over to them to look into it further. The animal hospital, they haven't formally made an application. The indications are that they will come back with a revised application, a little smaller footprint, hopefully addressing the neighbors' concerns. And I think they're still working through those issues, but we don't have an application yet.
All right, thanks.
Good. Very good. All right. Don, you've been pretty quiet. Did you want to have any commentary?
No, thanks.
Okay. Good to have you come along. All right. I think at that.
I have a general question.
Oh, good.
What is the restriction or the opportunity for the town operated properties to have naming rights by private companies?
Town operated?
Yeah, town, because that's what we control. So,
Yep.
For example, the library, if it was like, some major corporation could put a naming right on the library and we could have revenue just for the naming rights, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I have touched on this before. It's been, it has not been well received. I wasn't looking specifically at like naming the library, but I was thinking along the lines of having sponsors, even having sponsorship on some of other facilities. And it's a policy question. It's not precluded by regulations as far as I can tell, because the town generally has some latitude as it relates to that from its own regulations. I think we generally try to honor, what's good for everyone else should be good for the town as well. But it hasn't come up with this administration. The last inquiry along those lines was with the prior administration, and there was not any interest in it. So,
And had a very knowing smile. I'm interested to hear his thoughts, because he had a very, as soon as I was said, he reacted in it.
who's that?
Ken reacted when the.
Oh, Ken.
I was just interested. He had a very wry smile for a second there.
I think it's a great idea. I think it is really a great idea to monetize and leverage this town and the town's properties in a gainful way. That money that's raised can go right into that facility. So, that sponsor is basically the bearer of all capital expenses and improvements on that. I think it's a great idea. And given the high profile nature of this town, its location in Fairfield County, the employment it has, its population, there might be someone local, regional, maybe even national, that would want to do something like that. Most likely the libraries, possibly the beach, something that has, kind of broad appeal. I think it's a great idea.
So,
Typically,
yeah,
the
I'm thinking-
recreation facilities, like as you said, like the
Right.
beaches.
Or the
but
rec facilities. Right.
Right.
Great idea.
Like Gould Manor Park, right? Like, I don't know who's Gould Manor, but what if it was some baseball operator of some sort, Adirondack or somebody, because we have a great baseball program here in Fairfield. So why don't we have some major corporation sponsoring our baseball field that the kids play on?
Right. It could be Wilson, it could be Spalding, it could be, any of the sporting, who knows? I mean, if there's a will in the way, there has to, as Mark said, there's nothing precluding us from doing it. There just has to have the political will and the political desire.
I shouldn't say that there actually there has been examples of this. I mean, obviously we have the Bigelow Center down at where the senior services are. So, but I don't think that was more of a recognition for the company and Cindy Bigelow, as opposed to looking at it straightly from a economic standpoint. But I think there are opportunities to do this, and I don't think the town's really gone out and solicited it, but I'm sure the Parks and Rec Commission in particular is interested in that, because they're always looking for ways to provide support to both their facilities and the programs and activities they run. So if you do have any suggestions, I'll be happy to pass them along, because we actually had a conversation in the context of your event idea, Justin, about sponsorships and what's the upper limit in terms of corporate sponsors for Fairfield, and it tends to be, as Beverly can attest, it's pretty modest if you're just looking at companies based locally. If you look more broadly, maybe we could push that limit up a little bit. So,
Well,
good
can we
idea.
at least float the question, like, I guess the administration saying like, hey, the suggestion was, what are the steps for approving this? And then maybe it goes to the Parks and Recs, and it defrays their budget or gives them additional budget, whether it is for programs and whatnot.
Well, my general sense would be, I think this administration would be open to any of those ideas. I mean, I can ask the question directly, but they seem, open to at least considering ideas. They don't dismiss it out of hand, especially if it has a dollar figure attached to it.
Yeah, I think if there becomes an opportunity, I think then you just bring the opportunity to the selectman's office. I think that becomes the way to maybe do it. And then from there, it would become to create a policy that would create the ability to go forward with it. But
I mean, I think the bigger issue, Steve, is probably the process. So, you know, I can just see, I can see a messy process the way we're structured currently.
Yeah.
In terms of, you know, who would have to approve that. And I'm guessing ultimately, you know, when you're entering into a contract for something, it's probably going to the RTM at some point. So I can see that as not being, that being difficult to like pitch to a company. That, you know, if you have to go through like 4 different boards to get approval, and it gets messy publicly, that's not something they want to sign up for.
No, I
Sure. So
understand.
we'd have to clarify that.
all right. Any other thoughts? Any other business? All right.
I just
Well,
want to let y'all know that I'm down here in Florida and it's going to be 81 today, just so I let you know.
Oh, sure, rub it in.
yeah. Well, Justin, I'll also say that the way that the ceiling fan is set up, you got that bunny rabbit look going on there. It's set just perfect. Oh, you're ruining it for us now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll ask for a move to adjourn the meeting. A motion?
Motion to end meeting?
A second?
Second.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the month. Look forward to catching up with everyone next month. And I'm sure that we'll have some good emails from Mark and Beverly in between. Actually, no, we should actually plan on seeing each other to the best of our ability at the chamber event. That's where we should see each other next. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
we're adjourned at 9:20. Thank you all.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks.
have a good day.
Bye.